What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's another episode of the Countdown City Geekcast, and this is one that we are all excited for. This is going to be our spoiler review for Matt Reeves' film, The Batman, featuring Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. If you haven't seen it yet, we won't get into spoilers right off the bat. We'll make sure and start out with maybe just some general thoughts about it. That'll take a few minutes, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of it all and start talking about all the spoilers, Easter eggs, plot points. That's the time you want to pause the video, but no spoilers just yet. Joining me on this episode of the Batman Spoiler Review is the man behind the magic, the one and only Joe Garcia.
Hey, everybody.
Yay, Joe
Gl-
Garcia.
Glad to be here and be able to talk about the Batman. I'm so excited. I had to bring out the Grolsch and actually open it up here
Hey,
right
hey,
now.
Joe,
Everybody's going to
cheers.
have a good time. Cheers.
Cheers, Joe.
Everyone's going to have a good
Cheers.
time as we discuss the Batman. Everyone but Robert Kalunga because he hates everything.
He hasn't seen it yet. Don't
He's
don't
already
don't
shitting
jump
on
on
it,
him
Fred.
yet.
He's
Don't
already
jump on
shitting
him
on it,
yet.
man.
We'll see. We'll
He
talk about that
commented
later.
already. I put my first thoughts about the Batman on Facebook, and Robert was already shitting on another comment that I think Jericho had put on there. Then he was shitting on, oh, this is gonna be a bad Batman. I'm like, bro, you ain't even seen the movie yet. Like, is he
That's
drunk?
just Rob. You know Rob already.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Uh,
man. He's a character. I'll tell him that.
and also joining us on this episode, he did the preview show with me. It's the one and only Matty BTV. What's going on, Matt?
Maddie.
I'm honestly, it's just good to be here. It's one thing. The Countdown City Geekcast has been very hospitable. It went a couple of weeks without a show, and it's never a problem. It's been going on for a long time, but I felt like something was missing, and here I am, baby. I'm back, and we're ready
He's
to go.
back.
I love the
He's
movie,
back.
by the way.
There is something missing tonight, and it's Jericho, man. Jericho isn't here.
Man's got kids. Man's
Yeah, I
got
know.
man's got a litter of kids. Sometimes he doesn't have as much free time
Yeah.
as one would hope. But
Jericho has his own starting five if he was a basketball team. Let's put it like
he's
that.
almost there. Yeah, he's almost there. He's making his way to a baseball team. Yeah, for sure. Once again, this is going to be our Batman spoiler review. Starting right at the top of the show, though, we're going to get into our general thoughts, non spoiler points right here. Just a few minutes each, just going around talking about our general overview, our general thoughts about Batman featuring Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. We also want to hear from you. If you've seen the movie, we want you to jump into the chat and tell us what your overall view was for it. How do you think Robert Pattinson did as a Dark Knight? What did you think about Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman? When we get into the spoiler territory, we'll allow you to start dropping your spoiler bits, get into the plot details, get into your favorite parts of the film. But for now, try and keep it just non-spoiler comments until we get to the second part of our discussion. So Joe, we are going to start with you, man. You can't get away from it. You can't run. You can't escape. Want you to start the discussion, sir. Give us your general thoughts, your general overview of the Batman. No spoilers. Go for it.
Yeah, man. I just couldn't believe that the Penguin was revealed to be Batman's dad in this movie. I'm just playing.
Dude,
No
no spoilers, no
no
spoilers, no spoilers.
no spoilers.
What a jokester.
Yeah. No, honestly, I mean, I just thought the movie was a good movie, but somebody needs to warn you about that 3 hour runtime, man. Like, my left butt cheek was going to sleep, you know? It's like I couldn't feel my butt no more, so I had to kind of adjust. But other than that, I really enjoyed the film. I thought they did a good job of portraying the grittiness of this film. The use of textures and lighting. The cinematography was really on point, beautiful. Um, just some of the action sequences were really on par as well, and the way that they were able to portray uh, the fight sequences itself. And they did a really good job of kind of interweaving the nostalgia factor, which is they're using some of the older vehicles. They're showing like an older subway train, and it's kind of making you feel like, is this an older version of Gotham? Is it a newer version of Gotham? And it didn't matter at the end because just the way they brought everything together seamlessly, it kind of made you feel like you were it had that retro feel to it. Like you didn't know if it was supposed to you were in the 70s, were you in the early 2000s, were you in today's, uh 2022, it didn't matter. Just the universe and the way that they were able to portray it and bring you into it, for this story was really well done. I like the costume designs. I liked Robert Pattinson portraying both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Um, the big
Okay.
reveals too that they had is like not spoiling anything, but everybody knows that there is a Batmobile, and the way that they actually unveiled it, was really well done. And if you were in the theater that had really good sound, I mean,
Oof.
that car, you started going, eh! When you heard them really push on that gas, vroom, you're like, man, you could feel that, So I was like, man, that was something else. Even my wife like jumped up and she looked at me and she's like, "It's too loud." I'm like, "That's the way a car's supposed to sound."
No, it's not. Crank up some more.
I liked it. The storyline was another thing that was really well done as well. Drawing you in, and it was really, I think, a great portrayal of what everybody had wanted all along from a Batman movie. You've seen the Batman as far as him being portrayed in the animated versions, and those were really well done. Imagine that on the big screen finally, and there you go. That's why I think a lot of people were really so hyped about this one. Basically, what it is it's a Batman year two, so really well done. I think DC is on the right track. This was something that I think is going to be setting the tone for the future, Ted, where DC is going to actually be able to compete with Marvel because they're going to start bringing out films that are the filmmaker's version, which I think they're learning to get out of their own way over at Warner Brothers, hopefully, and let the filmmakers work because this is one of these films that is the filmmaker's version of the film. There's not going to be, there might be an extended cut, but it's not going to be a Zack Snyder cut kind of thing. This was the filmmaker's vision from start to finish. And I think this is how DC competes with Marvel, killing them with quality, not quantity. And overall, I think it's one of the best Batman movies that I've ever seen on the big screen.
I am glad to hear you say all of those things. You're usually one of the bigger skeptics or bigger critics
I want high
of our group.
quality. Yeah, I want quality. And then this one really delivered quality from start to finish.
There you go. And remind me to bring up the whole Marvel DC competition later because I think that's something that I've come to a revelation about, and we'll talk about that later on. But Matt, you're next, sir. I want to get your general thoughts about the Batman. Go for it, man.
Um, it was. I agree with the quality takes for sure. It was 100% quality. And another thing that I don't want to like steal from reviews I read after seeing the film, but it was like Batman was very homemade in this film. And that's not something that I think has actually ever really been explored from any Batman movie. We all remember the batarang grinding on the wheel, but throughout this movie, from the other Batman movies, but in this one, you saw the engine kind of disassembled from the Batmobile. Oh wait, no spoilers.
You're fine so
No,
far.
no,
You're
no.
good. You're good so
Okay, okay.
far. You're
Because
good.
we know what the Batmobile looks like. But anyway,
Yeah, we've seen it.
it's very, very homemade. You can see him crafting the character that he's going to be. I can still feel him looking at me through the cowl. Um, he had a very intimidating look. There's a particular scene we'll talk about in the next section
Hmm.
that I found to be amazing by Pattinson alone. The direction of this film was incredible. The utilization of character was incredible. Um, it was a bladder testing 3 hours. It does not have to be that long, but what it was so good. It's almost like when you're full when you're eating the cheesecake. It's great cheesecake. We love the cheesecake. And there's just a little bit left, and you kind of push it to the side for a second. You're like, well, no, but you're gonna finish it before you leave the restaurant. That's what this like movie was. Like I got full. I had to get the rest down, but I was gonna finish it, and I enjoyed it.
You had 2 or 3 slices of cheesecake, and you had cheesecake culture. That's what this movie was.
But I mean, I loved it. That's my overall thing. I can't talk about it without
It's
diving
difficult.
into
Yeah.
why I feel that way. I'm not good at the no spoiler thing, so I'll leave it short and sweet, unlike this movie.
Well said, well said. And I will round out this non-spoiler quick couple of minutes just by saying that it is everything I thought it would be, and happily to say, and more. If you saw our preview show, I had a I wanted to get in the mindset of the director, and Matt Reeves. He wanted to put a Batman on screen we haven't seen before, and that's challenging because we've had like a dozen variations of Batman, and I know I'm kind of just throwing out a number there, but it's close to that if you want to add them all up. So how do you put a fresh take on Batman and try and do something new that fans haven't seen before? And Matt was set out to do that with this version of. It's refreshing. It's new. It feels raw, gritty. It feels grounded, but not too grounded. Like we're not in the real world, and that was a big difference from like the Nolan films. You were really in New York, Chicago, wherever he filmed. You kind of felt like it was those places. Gotham feels real again in this movie, and that was one of my favorite parts. Was just this feels like a comic book universe again, and it's supposed to. um, I love the acting, love the score. I love the action sequences, but I really appreciated the tone of this film and how different they set out to be. You've heard probably from other reviewers this was a mystery, or this was a horror movie with Batman thrown in, and that sounds like it's a criticism, but it's really not. It's Batman comic book stories or novels or graphic novels or movies, the animated movies, that is, the ones that kind of don't focus on Batman, but he's sort of reacting to the events that are going on around him, tend to be the better stories. And this is one that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate if they can get away from whoever their quote unquote like favorite Batman is. If you can just go along with the storytellers in this one and just see this Bruce Wayne on his journey of becoming a crime fighter, a vigilante in the city, and you can just follow him along this adventure of his, this crusade, that I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with what they're doing, and you can appreciate it a lot more. I really love this film. Is I'm not going to tell you it's the best Batman movie out there. I'm not going to tell you it's the best DC movie out there, but it was a hell of a lot of fun, and I've already seen it like twice, and it's even better on the second viewing, I would say. So if you had a chance to see it, congratulations. If you haven't, we all three highly recommend you go check it out. Um, Take the family, but maybe leave the young kids at home. They might not be ready for what
Under
the
what
Riddler's
age?
dishing out.
I would
Under
say
what age?
uh, under six. I was gonna say like 11 and under probably shouldn't be there.
I would even say a little younger than that, maybe 8, 7, you know?
Yeah.
So 12 and up. Okay. Yeah,
Well,
we got yeah.
our
Yeah,
generation, 8 year olds could have seen this movie.
yeah,
This
not now.
generation, no, not now. They get all wild ideas. These kids.
All right, and that'll do it for the non-spoiler portion of this episode. And we want you to pause this video if you haven't seen the movie. We don't want to spoil anything for you. We want you to experience it for the first time when you get the chance to see it. So pause this video now, come back and check it out when you're ready to discuss it with us. And if you have seen the movie and you're watching this live stream right now, be sure to jump in the chat. Let us know what your favorite parts were, your favorite moments, your favorite Easter eggs. There was a bunch of them. Let us know in the comments below. And first, we're going to start off with what worked really well for you. And I'm going to start this off by saying the villain. Above all else, I've always asked for a very cerebral villain that, he probably doesn't have the bronze to go up against Batman, but he sure has the brains to sort of mess with him throughout a movie. And I might talk about this a little bit later too, but this is a Batman that he might have succeeded by the end of the film, but he didn't really win. You know what I mean? Like he pretty much won the battle, but he lost the battle, but he kind of won the war.
Is it the point though that Batman never wins? Like it's an
Ooh,
ongoing. It's
and
always
you,
an ongoing battle. That's why Alfred was trying to get him to quit. He's like, they were trying to give him a different moniker. You've instilled fear, like in
yeah,
the Nolan series. Maybe it's time to let the Dent take over, sort of thing. Like you're never going to be done doing this. And he was obsessed with being that too. So that was always like a big thing.
absolutely, absolutely. And I just wanted to say like that. My favorite part of this movie is Paul Dano as Riddler, which I've been a huge Paul Dano fan ever since The Girl Next Door, which is a comedy completely like different than what he does in this film.
Mhm.
But Paul Dano is absolutely fantastic, and you kind of hear some of the stories about being on the set. Matt Reeves said while he's filming sort of those videos of those live streams, Paul Dano did like a few hundred takes, all different, to kind of work it out and come to something that he felt like really worked. So you get all of these sort of live streamed moments with the Riddler, using the current technology and social media to kind of be this force to be reckoned with. And it was kind of exactly what I wanted to see in a Batman movie. Finally, um, somebody that Batman couldn't beat with his punches. You know,
Mhm.
he had
Yeah.
to beat him with his brain. Um, and one might argue that Batman doesn't necessarily succeed on his own. He definitely needed assistance, and who knows if things didn't go down the way they would have at the very end. But I want to say what really worked for me: the villain, Paul Dano, the Riddler. Joe, what about you, sir? What really worked for you in this movie?
I think it was just the way that the storyline was kind of set up. That kind of worked for me, that you had more than one villain in this film, and trying to kind of mingle all these villains is a tall order, because if you have too many villains on screen, as we've seen in the past with some movies that try to put more than one villain up there, aka Spider-Man's tried to do that, and it didn't quite work out. But in this instance, it worked out because of the way that the storyline was written, and the screen time that each villain had on the big screen, as
Yeah,
far as them having their moments. I think the Riddler was first and foremost, he was your main villain. Then you had side villains, and the Riddler's portrayal, this Riddler is the Riddler that fans have been wanting to see for quite some time.
absolutely.
It's not your Jim Carrey version of the Riddler, This is a dark version of the Riddler, which is kind of more a faithful adaptation of what you're going to see in a animated, film, or even in a graphic novel, which is really refreshing. Yeah, this is kind of what you're wanting, this dark, gritty uh, movie, and that it delivers in that regards. Um, One of the things that made me bust out laughing, I'm not even going to lie, man, and it wasn't meant to be funny, but it was funny to me. Is you had this instance where Batman, okay, he kind of gets concussed, right? He gets kind of knocked out
Yeah,
in this version, well, in the movie. So he goes to the police station, and then the cops are, well, you committed a crime. We're gonna have to kind of keep you here. So basically, the future commissioner Gordon helps him escape. Batman runs to the top. of the police building proceeds to glide down via flying squirrel, dude, and this like weird suit. I mean, it made no sense to me. That whole sequence that did not work for me, and I thought it was so funny because if he would have just had his wings out and he would have just glided down, that would have been dope. That's Batman style,
Mhm,
not like I'm gonna inflate this suit that I had underneath the whole
mhm.
time and glide down via flying squirrel. I was like, bro, I was like legit laughing in the theater, and then he like hit his head underneath the bridge and like he's like, "Oh, oh." I'm like, "Bro, that would have killed you, man. Like, come on, son. You're going to walk that off." To me that was a funny part of the film, but that little snippet right there, that didn't work too well for me. I just thought it was like it got weird. It's like just put the wings up and glide, like we all know you can do that. I mean, that would have been better than flying squirrel Batman. I was like, "Damn, dude." Like that's the only thing that I had to nitpick out of the whole film, but everything else was so good. I mean, I thought this was probably one of the best versions of Batman that I've seen on the big screen. And that's the thing that, again, fans get caught up in. We compare. Look what happened with Keaton. Look at what happened with Bale. Who played the better Batman? But I think that's kind of a travesty that we kind of do that. We can't
Sure.
really just enjoy the moment. And I think if you can just go out there and just let go of those other monikers and just say, hey, this is a really good standalone movie, really well done from start to finish, good storyline. Even the acting was spot on. You're going to really enjoy this movie for the version of Batman that you're seeing on the big screen. All these things worked for me. The runtime, it was a little much, 3 hours. And the other thing that kind of didn't work for me too much was that the movie could have ended 3 different times. But they're like, "Wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. Wait, there's more." I'm like, "Damn." Yeah, it's like I wasn't complaining at the end of the day, but I was like there was 3 different times that they could have ended the film and it just kept progressing and it just kept progressing. So I understood, in the context of going back, looking at it, rewinding certain scenes and all that, it works better the way that they did it because they had a big story to tell. It was the filmmaker's vision. Had it been Warner Brothers interfering, they could have ended it at that first stopping point and that would have been the end of it, and it wouldn't have been bad. But then that second stopping point gave you a little more. It's like, okay, you could have ended it there. No, they went and did another third rendition, and I was like, okay, this was a good. It was like you're staying on stage and you're getting that standing ovation and you're the band and you come out and play another couple songs and another couple songs and you're like, what, fuck it, let's just go ahead and do the whole b-side. Y'all are great, we love you, we
Yeah.
love you, San Antonio. uh, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fan service that they did here, a lot of little Easter
Ooh,
eggs.
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
They
Come
did
on
some
now.
service. They did some fan service because what they're doing is they're setting things up for future films. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed here because they had some characters in here that you go back and you're like, I wonder what this is going to develop into, And then they keep on honing into that child, and you're like, where's this going? And they leave you with these questions and you're like, I wonder who this character is going to develop into because the camera lingers on that kid, and then the camera lingered on that other Riddler soldier for quite some time. And when they finally took the mask off and he's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm vengeance. You're like, okay, I wonder what this guy's going to wind up developing into, So the not knowing part of it, I think is brilliant, because you have these scenarios that you run through your head as a
Yeah.
fan
Yeah.
and you don't really know what direction they're going to go to. And I think that's a good thing because when the next film comes up, then that payoff will be even better, So that's the part I like the most.
There you go. Talking about the characters that they kind of dropped in here, Matt Reeves has said, "Don't read into anything." He says, "We don't have the villain set for the sequel." He says, "We're just trying to establish what Gotham is today. We're not trying to set up the next film just yet." But that
And
he
you
could
believe
also
him?
just be telling us.
And you believe him?
I believe Matt Reeves when he says something more than I believe Kevin Feige over at Marvel when he says something.
No,
Um,
I'm just saying. I mean, they always say that, and then something else happens. So I'm. I'm just saying I think they're kind of keeping the door open. You know, they're not saying this is this person, this is going to develop into this person. It's not, it's the not knowing. You don't know where it's going to go. And I think
Sure.
that was a cool thing to me.
There you go. Matt, what about you, sir? What really worked for you in this film?
The relationship between Selena Kyle and Batman.
Hey, yeah,
Or he's not Batman in this movie. I don't think they call him the Batman once. So between Selena Kyle and Vengeance, um, I think that one was really, really good. I also, I mean, Colin Farrell's Penguin was incredible.
Yeah, you didn't
Um,
forget it was him. You forgot it was him underneath all that, you know?
he gave me like a caricature of Tony Soprano, who was a caricature of a real life mobster. It was like almost like a sequence. I thoroughly enjoyed that he wasn't the boss. He was a mid level guy. I thought that
right,
was really smart. I like how they brought in the Joker without saying he's the Joker, but made several references, making you think that it would be talking to the Riddler. Everyone is coming up at the same time.
right,
The center and the balance that we know as Gotham City is sort of all coming up together, which brings sense to some of the later movies in like Batman Year 10, Batman Year 15, where he has things figured out. He doesn't bump his head on corners. He's moving through, but at the same time, his villains are also progressing with him. They have, and he has to learn to adapt to that. So I thought, looking backwards at it, from the rear view instead of the windshield, the way that they portrayed this year two of Batman was very accurate. I thought it was good. It was different than other Batman movies, but it made
absolutely.
sense to me of how everything works and how they can set everything up. I wanted to get to the point about the 3 hour run times and setting up other movies, because both of you, I think, are right, and I could be completely wrong. So my take on that is that's why we've already gotten an announcement of a Penguin show. Is this is kind of our last taste of like a 3 hour movie in the cinema. Let's get it up. Let's set up this universe. But we're not going to spawn many movies off of this. We're going to spawn TV shows and turn directors into showrunners and do series of these different scenarios and that sort of thing. Kind of like how Star Wars, which basically Marvel, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. So they're all Disney. So they're kind of doing that same thing with Star Wars right now. And it was working for them really well. And it allowed them to be more gritty than the Marvel movies were, just to a point. And so I think that DC is going to kind of definitely follow that model, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of follow up films to this movie. But I think we will see follow up limited series.
Yeah, and you're not wrong there. We've already heard the announcement of Colin Farrell getting sort of a Penguin, either limited series or just a live action series where he's sort of the focus. So maybe it's him during this power grab uh post the ending of this movie, where he's trying to really establish his own grasp of Gotham City. That
Mhm.
could be one way they focus on the Penguin. We were also told there was going to be a series that revolved around the Gotham City Police Department, and it turns out that that show is no longer in development. What they've decided to do is instead focus on Arkham Asylum. So the GCPD show, which would have just been maybe a rehash of the Gotham show, is no longer moving forward, and a new live action series is in development, which will focus on the Arkham State Institution, and that's very peculiar. And it's like, what would you exactly show us at Arkham that worth telling us a story if you're not going to include the Dark Knight, the Cape Crusader, in it? And not to get too far off topic, but what if this series is going to show us either a breakout at the end, or show us the rise up of a couple of villains that we know, and love. Maybe it's this Joker that we've already seen a glimpse of. Maybe he's the one getting out, and that's how that series would end. So whatever it might be, that's what's going to happen next. It's not going to be the sequel to Batman, but it'll be a TV series focused around Arkham Asylum.
which would be
Um,
great. And honestly, if the Penguin show, dude, honestly, if they were to do like Sopranos and Gotham, that would be well, not only hilarious, but it would fit the character so well. If like
sure.
Penguin's show was basically like, because The Sopranos was like that, it was a mid-level guy who rises to the top. If they kind of show that same kind of arc and some of the same humor and mob influence, I think they would have a definite hit on their hands.
You got to do the intro though to The Sopranos, but instead of
Yeah.
it being New Jersey,
He's
it's got to
riding to
be
Gotham.
Gotham.
That would be great.
Woke up this morning. You got people like doing drugs and like drive-bys and stuff, and
Yeah, oh
bat
yeah.
signal in the sky, and
Oh yeah. Here's another thing about doing drugs. Okay.
don't
I
do it.
I wish the movie didn't do this. Oh,
Ooh, what's that?
he's a drop head. That's the
Yeah.
stupidest thing I've ever heard in my freaking life. I hated that. I hated it. It was like, oh, he's a drop head. Like there isn't like other drugs that people do. Like there should be a multitude of them.
They're
Everybody in the
trying to
city,
keep
if you're
the
doing drugs, you're doing
PG-13
drops.
rating. They're trying to keep that PG-13 rating, man.
Yeah, but
Ooh, good call.
but the character with the
The
mask,
drop
the
head.
drop head.
Yeah,
I mean,
Drop.
it was overdone. It was lame, dude. They could have used weed. I mean, that's PG-13. Yeah, everyone's smoking weed.
I don't
They
think
could
it's
have just
violent
pulled,
enough though.
Yeah, I
they
guess,
could
but
have just
like,
pulled something out and smoked it. You don't know what it is,
I mean,
you
but
know?
Sure.
no, they were dropping them in their eyes in the club. They were like, it's
There you
crazy.
go. There you go. I also wanted to mention what really worked for me was Matt Reeves' portrayal of this Batman. In our preview episode, which we did a couple of days before the movie came out, I talked about, this feels much like a Batman that is inexperienced, naive. He's not. He's gonna be taking a lot of L's in this movie from the Riddler. And what's interesting is the marketing scheme kind of ties in with that aspect. He's too emotional in this movie. He's too vengeful. And so, what is the whole marketing campaign surrounding this movie? Well, take a look at our background. Everything's in red. Logos in red. The posters are in red. When he's filming himself, crime fighting throughout the night, he's wearing these contact lenses that capture everything. And then when he plays them back, he sees them in red. What's the meaning of seeing red? Is being angry, vengeful, being full of rage. And that's what this Batman is. He's not good at this yet. He's okay. He's all right. He's a great detective. He can see things nobody else is seeing. He can hold his own against a group of thugs, but he's going to take way too many hits, way more than he should. When he's being shot at, he's not careful enough. He's just walking up to the guy with the gun, hoping he doesn't shoot him in the face. Um, our Batman, this Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, is going to get better at these things. He's still young. He's still, like I mentioned, too emotional, full of rage, too vengeful, and doing this with your emotions is a recipe for disaster. Which he almost died how many times in this movie? Nearly got Alfred killed. Selena probably almost died because of that, and so he by the end of this movie, he's already starting to understand that being Batman isn't enough. Wearing this cape, wearing this armor, using violence against the criminal underworld, it isn't enough. His one of the last lines in this movie is, "Vengeance won't change the past, mine or anyone else's. I have to become more." And he has that arc at the end of this film that it's not just going to be enough how he's doing things now. He has to keep getting better at this, being more effective, being more efficient, and also his persona, because Bruce Wayne in most cases is just the facade that he puts on for the world to see. He's going to have to do more with that as well. It's not just going to be enough going out at night trying to scare people, because it can't be everywhere at once. And we see time and time again almost losing Alfred, losing witnesses, you know, different things happening in this movie. He should be following people that he knows are targets, and instead, you know, he loses them one by one. He doesn't save anybody that the Riddler's trying to kill. And then, you know, Alfred is an innocent bystander in one of those instances. So I really appreciate that there is going to be growth to this Batman that we're able to witness as an audience and go along with and see him progress and see him get better. His suit will be better the next time we see him. His fighting style, his techniques, his use of shadows. He won't just be walking up to people. Probably in the next movie, he'll be way more stealthy in that regard. It's not just like a "here I am, let's fight." You know, his use
Exactly.
of
And there's a
yeah,
particular scene that corroborates exactly what you're saying right now. Well, not a particular scene, but an arc through the movie.
hmm
He approaches the club.
yeah,
The first time he approaches the club as Batman. So this is Bruce Wayne figuring out how to be Batman. This is what I'm talking about. So the first time he approaches the club, he approaches Batman, tries to be brute force, and he gets his way in, but he gets his ass kicked a little bit along the way, and then gets shut down. He approaches the club again for the same person, same information as Bruce Wayne the second time. And he's like, "Oh, I'm Bruce Wayne. Easy, let you in." He's not getting his ass whooped this time. Okay, Bruce Wayne and Batman have different effects. He's starting to understand that. He still didn't get what he wanted as Bruce Wayne, though. So the third time we see him approach the club, Batman just sneaks in and everything's fine. He gets everything that he needs. So it showed him learning through trial and error on these effects. And all of
yes.
this that he's doing in this movie is providing justification as to what we've heard him tell Robin on screen for many different movies. With Chris O'Donnell's character, all these different things, Batman's always saying, "Don't be too reckless. Don't just rush in." And it's just assumed that he knows that. But this movie is showing why he knows that.
Yeah, I
No,
think another thing
absolutely.
too that was kind of like really people didn't really understand a lot, and they gave Robert Pattinson a lot of flack for is his portrayal of Bruce Wayne. They're like, "Oh, he's a great Batman, but he was a lousy Bruce Wayne." I'm like, "This is Batman year 2."
Mm,
You know, Bruce Wayne is still trying to figure out who he is because he's so young right now. And you even hear that conversation that he has with Alfred, where he's like, "You need to speak to, the board, the board members or whatever. They're coming over." And it was I think it was, I forgot who it was. It was in board members. I think they were
We
going to
never
be,
saw them,
we never saw them, but they
and
were
that
on
was
the,
weird that they would spend so much time telling us that, and then like we don't even get a glimpse of them. I guess
yeah.
they
I
they
think
cut
I
that
think
part
what they
out,
were, they were accountants. I think it was the accountants that wanted to talk with him
right?
and about finances and stuff. And he's like, "I don't have time. I don't have time." And Alfred's like, "You need to make time. I have him coming over." And you can see that at this point in time, Bruce Wayne hates being Bruce Wayne. Like it pains him. Literally, it pains him to want to be able to talk with people. Um, he's left really jaded at this point. Where
yeah.
he
Especially after
only
he
finds,
figures out that his father may have been involved in some of this shit. And
yeah,
then it
and then
really takes a turn there. Go ahead. I just
yeah,
wanted to make that as
yeah,
you make your next point. Like
yeah,
he's really confused. He doesn't want to be a Wayne right now.
yeah, he doesn't want to at this point. And the thing is like he only finds solace and comfort when he's donning the mask and cowl. That's
Hmm.
him. This is who I really am. This is what I can finally be myself, and that's by being Batman. But he knows now in this year 2 Batman, like you all said, that being Batman and inflicting fear and vengeance isn't enough. And another thing I think that he took from this whole film, as far as the character development of one Bruce Wayne, is that he knows that his weakness is his attachments to not losing people. He doesn't want to lose Alfred, even though he went and told Alfred, "You're not my father." And Alfred says, like, "I know, that's pretty clear. I'm not your dad,
Hmm.
But as he
Someone
gets
should
close,
be.
yeah, as he gets close to almost losing him, he finally realizes, you know what? I really do care about Alfred. This is like the closest that I have to a living relative. So
Sure,
he knows that that is his weakness right there. That he has to protect Alfred at all costs. And another thing is that he's learning as the story unfolds the lengths that his dad went to go ahead and try to sweep under the rug, the family's dirty secrets as far as the mental health issues that his mom was going through. And then they didn't want that out in the public eye because that's kind of a private thing. And this reporter went ahead and got that dirt on them. And unfortunately for the Waynes, he didn't want to be bought out. And Bruce Wayne had to, well, not Bruce, but his dad had to go and hire or kind of talk with somebody else that was in the underground, like a thug, a gangster, to kind of take care of things for him.
The
He
boss.
didn't, yeah, he didn't intend for the guy to get killed, but that's how you take care of things when you're part of the mob. You make them
Mhm.
go away. The problem went away,
Yeah.
and he
Now
felt
pay me.
remorseful. Yeah, he felt remorseful for that. And then the other flip side to that is I think when he was in the orphanage, he learned a lot that he's an orphan too. And as the Riddler went and told him, but are you really? He goes, this is what it's like to be an orphan. There's a baby that dies every winter because it's so cold.
Yeah.
You're having to wake up at night because the rats are gnawing at your feet and fingers. You're always hungry. Nobody really cares about you, but you're over there in your tower looking down on everybody else, and the money helps. So are you really all by yourself? You know? And I think that's where he's starting to have that realization that he can help the city as Bruce Wayne, and he can also help the city as the Batman. But Bruce Wayne can help a lot of the citizens, including those that are less fortunate, such as the orphans, through philanthropy. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing the real evolution of the character that is Bruce Wayne. And as he evolves as a person, so is the Batman is going to evolve as that superhero, because it coincides together. You can't just evolve one facet of yourself and not the other. So as you learn and you grow as a person, you're going to grow as being that vigilante, which is Batman. And I thought that was a thing that I took away that was so deep within this movie is that contrast between the two characters, the two sides to Bruce Wayne. So I'm looking forward to what they're going to wind up doing with that moving forward, and how is that going to play into the sequel, where you're going to see Bruce Wayne maybe doing a little bit more of the philanthropy, getting out in the public eye, trying to help the citizens of Gotham, and maybe he might be making enemies as Bruce Wayne and also as the Batman. How is that going to affect his psyche? And as we did see when he came to down to it, and he really needed that extra push to help the Catwoman because she was in dire straits, almost going to get killed by one of the Riddler's goons there, the Riddler's army. He injected something, and that's been a big debate too amongst everybody on social media. What did he inject into his leg that was green? People say it was nothing more than adrenaline. And then you have the other facet of fans saying, wait, 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 it could have been venom. And I'm going to say something that really, when I go back and I kind of relive this scene, in my mind, and you're going back and kind of looking at it again and again, it kind of changed his tone a little bit. Where, yes, it gave him a boost where he could get stronger, but it also made him more enrageful. Where, isn't that a side effect of venom? Where you kind of lose yourself and you just full on rage, kind of like steroids, because he almost killed somebody, and Catwoman had to kind of pull him back, and before
I,
he went too far.
can I thought it was in like my perception of it was, and sort of the paradox that Batman is in fighting the crime and these drug lords, and also having benefited from it. The drops are green. There was a green drop head. Was the character that was there? I think he injected himself with the drops. Um, that he spent a lot of time fighting against. I think that he had a vial full of the drops. It's a party drug, obviously. We saw it in the clubs. It has people a little bit off their kilter, but it obviously has them kind of moving a little bit. It might get you a little electric. It seems like a party drug.
It's more of an
I
LSD.
think he injected himself with the drops. I think that was like a paradox for him in that
I
moment.
don't think it was drops though, because the LSD, it's kind of like an LSD with the drops. You're kind of like you're faded, you're having a good time, you're just chilling, you're
For a
getting high,
second, but anytime anyone's
so
ever taken a drug, if you have or haven't,
oh yeah, you're gonna have
the
after effects.
come up is intense,
Yeah,
and then you might vibe out a little bit. But
yeah.
like
Uh,
that rush of adrenaline, I just thought it was the drops because it was green liquid, and the drops were green too.
Yeah, I think
Niner 49ers already got this figured out. It was kryptonite, gentlemen. He injected himself with kryptonite, and
a lot of
yeah,
people didn't like a
that's
lot
his
of
story.
people didn't, really, I guess, care for the movie, they're used to the different portrayals of the Batman, but I like this one, That's just my personal opinion. I mean, everybody has their own opinions, and they can chime in however they want to, but my personal opinion, I thought it was a good movie, A
But
bit
can we
long, but
talk
it was
about
good.
how I think that fan perception? I really want to wrap it all up into the 3 hour runtime. I mean, it's just you're asking a lot. There's not a lot of things that I'm willing to give 3 direct hours of attention to. I mean that if I were to make a list in my life, it would be very few things that would get just my direct attention and focus for 3 hours at a time. I think a lot of people suffered from that. I know at certain points, I checked out two. Ted, you had to counter two
Too.
times. Yeah, two times. I got up and I had to just like stretch my legs for a second. I had to go pee. Um, and so I think a lot of the negative reviews aren't because it's a bad movie. It's because they were like bored or tired and
Yeah.
they didn't like the 3 hour runtime.
Yeah. Niner also says that he thinks the movie was garbage. He says he doesn't know if they're trying to make the ending a twist, but it sucked, just super boring the whole time. I actually enjoyed that twist at the end, being that we find out what the Riddler's true plan was, and also that we keep thinking that he's kind of messing with Batman. That he's sort of like choosing to be an enemy of Batman, but in the end, he was kind of inspired by him, and it's got to be something that Bruce is taken back by when he's trying to make a difference. He's trying to rid the world of evil, and yet he's in a way spawning greater evil because of his actions. And so it's a great paradox that he's sort of created, and I love that dynamic and that reveal that the Riddler's out here just trying to be his best friend.
Yeah, but
Let's be
I mean,
bros. Let's take
honestly,
them all down, man.
actually, I want to do. I think we should bring Niner on for another review. I would just like to talk this out because I'm telling you, I there were so many cool and crazy moments in this movie for me that I would just love to know, like what you found boring about it. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion for sure, but it was not lacking in cool or
I know what
crazy moments.
I know what he's talking about.
But it's like I think this is like the over flow of the Snyderverse, where Batman's fighting aliens all the time. Um, it's a pretty grounded universe. Batman is actually in. Aside from Justice League films or anything else, I mean, once you come off of him fighting Superman or the Justice League and everybody, I mean, I guess it could seem boring, but it this to me seemed like more of a Batman film for sure.
Definitely. This kind of goes into our next topic of discussion. We talked about what really worked for us. Now we're going to talk about what might not have worked so well. Not to say that it's like a major detriment to this movie, but what is something that you wish would have been changed or what just didn't really work for you so well? Niners hitting on something that I wanted to talk about before. And I think it's the reason why I'm not praising this movie as a masterpiece like some are, or people are saying this is the best DC movie. People are saying this is the best Batman movie, and I'm going to pump the brakes there because I've been on discussion boards, chat rooms, Twitter, and all that stuff, just letting people kind of hearing what they're saying, and I'm at the point that um, Chris Nolan, Chris Nolan above all else, knew how to take a movie and turn it into a spectacle. He know how to write iconic moments in a movie, things we had never seen before, things that we wouldn't have dreamed about in our wildest dreams and our wildest imaginations. If you think about The Dark Knight, which is, by most votes, the greatest Batman or greatest comic movie, however you want to see it ever, I can think of like a dozen moments in that movie that are just iconic. Like I'll never forget how it looked, how I felt, all that stuff. The first opening scene where we see Joker's face under that mask. Iconic. The first
The
time
pencil through the eye.
the
Um,
pencil through the eye. Batman
the really weird horizontal angle when the
when
when the
he's hanging
Joker at
upside
the end
down.
hanging upside down, but he's not hanging upside down. He's just sort of doing this.
Absolutely. When the scene where they're following Dent in the police van
Mhm.
and the side door to the 18-wheeler bed opens up and Joker's just hanging out, swaying this like shotgun in his hand. I'm just like, this is amazing.
The call
This is the
between
greatest thing
Rachel
I've
and
ever
Dent.
seen.
The
The
call
call between
between Rachel
Rachel,
and Dent.
Listen, you can name more.
Yeah.
Dent's
I can name
face
another
on
one for you that
Dent's
didn't work
face
though.
on fire. Hold on, hold on, hold on. The
Yeah,
hospital blowing up and the Joker walking out of it like it
that was
was a
a cool scene.
gag.
That
Huh?
was a cool scene. That was a cool scene.
The
No, that's
school
what I'm
bus,
saying.
the school bus
These
pulling out into regular traffic.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is these are the iconic moments that Christopher Nolan wrote into his films. It's not enough for Chris Nolan to write a film. He needs to make sure that there's certain moments in this film that you're never going to forget as an audience member. Flipping over an 18-wheeler with the use of the bat pod. Like, can you when you saw that for the first time, you're just like, "What is happening? This is like nothing I've ever seen before." So I think what Nine is trying to hit on is like he was waiting to be wowed. He was waiting to be just completely like thrown out of his element just watching this thing, and it felt very grounded, not to say predictable, but it felt for the most part like it needed more of a spectacle feel to really elevate it to some of the levels of those other Batman films. And that's
but it's
all I'm
like
trying to say
JC
about
always
that.
says, this is the setup, Ted. This is the setup.
Hey, even in Begins, we have so many great of those moments in there. I remember I was blown away watching Begins when Bruce Wayne was training with the League of Shadows, and they made him take that stuff, and then they all sort of lined up in this like, and that was part of his training to just like, um, forget the dude's name, Ducard. He had to like find Liam Neeson in this group of assassins and like go to toe with him.
Ducard,
Use
yeah.
his
I forgot about Ducard. That was Ra's al Ghul's name, right?
yeah for the
In
first
Batman Begins, yeah.
yeah for the first 2 hours his name was Ducard or
Ducard,
something like
yeah.
You know what
that.
was funny to me in the Dark Knight is that scene where they have Harvey Dent, and he's already Two Face. His face is all messed up and everything. He's sitting in the hospital room on his bed, and bro, you're not gonna recognize that that's the Joker dressed up as a nurse. Like, come on, man.
I mean, he only had half a face. He's probably all
Honestly,
drugged up, dude.
It was funny because
honestly,
he's
I
standing right
have
in
my
front of the bed.
critiques. I have my critiques on the
He's
Dark
standing
Knight.
in front of the bed looking at him, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't know, that's the Joker." With you can clearly see that he's wearing the makeup. You can see the hair coming out, and then no, it's not him until I take off the little mask, and then he starts. He gets all scared. I'm like, "Come on, man,
You know how
that
many
would make
Yeah,
me."
painkillers he was on at the time?
and
He would have been the
there's
same.
scenes like you're saying, Ted. There's scenes from that movie that are burned into my brain. A few of them were burned in my brain after the first time I watched it. They're burned in my brain because it's a good movie and I've
Yeah.
seen it a million fucking times. I mean, like that's why it's burned into my brain. Like, um, I think it had its issues as well. I think this movie in particular, um, people just have to realize it's okay for us to all like Batman, but we all also like different movies. We have different interests, different things appeal to us as human beings. So it doesn't
Yeah,
make it not Batman because it's not the Dark Knight. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I
It's
got a
just
theory though, when why people think the film was so dark. Some people thought it was dark, and others didn't. I
I
think
thought it
the
was dark.
I thought it was dark, but I think the one thing that made it dark for some people is the social media advent of things. Where the Riddler is actually making an audience. Where he's using the phone as a prop to bring in Batman to his live stream. And he has all these followers, everybody's commenting, and you're going to see somebody get blowed up in real time, and it's kind of a game and it's a dark game. And I think that's kind of what struck a chord with some of the audience is it's kind of pulling in what's going on with today's advent of social media and how it affects people, and then even the Riddler going ahead and using social media as a tool. And that's the thing that I thought was so cool about this whole thing is a lot of people fail to realize that yes, social media can be a two-way tool. It can be a tool to communicate, but it can also be a tool to communicate a message. And
Sure.
this is kind of what happens when you weaponize social media. And we saw that the Riddler, in fact, did that because he was able to grow his army and coordinate an attack at the very end of this film that really almost took out Batman and took out the whole damn city. So it's like this is the power of social media used as a weapon,
Didn't
and I
you
think
didn't you
that's what
think that was did you think that whole sequence there? Because I've been trying to ask people this, I get mixed response. So when he's like doing the live posts throughout the thing,
I thought
don't
that
you
was
think
kind
that
of funny, man.
well, I thought it was directly inspired by Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah,
Right? Like that was like an inspiration was like because the Joker would just hijack the newscast in
yeah,
that day, right?
Yep.
yeah.
But that was reaching hundreds, if not millions of people, right? I
At
thought
once,
what was
yeah,
really cool about the Riddler's Instagram page, what did he get? I think he had 500 followers.
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't like that's what also kept the movie really grounded. Oh, they're all still coming up. Like the Riddler
yeah.
was still building his following. I wonder if we see him later, if there's another follower account and we can see it's at
Millions of people
5,000
and
or whatever,
stuff.
or a
Yeah,
million or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like in that first movie, like it made it seem like he was really influencing a lot of people, but he had
yeah.
500 followers
Well, he
That
was
that
because
felt
look at
more
the
like a 4chan or like a subreddit page when it came to the secret
because
stuff
that's
and
how he
having
was
people
building the
follow
army,
him.
right?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the cool
For
thing
the
was
end
when he was
sequence.
when he was having his live stream, you saw people interacting, and they were like, "You can buy that winter mask over at the army surplus
They
and
actually
the
had that in
jacket."
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, "I'm
That was
going tomorrow.
crazy.
I'm going tomorrow, and I'm gonna go buy that."
Yeah, that was
Well, those.
crazy how they did that because you could literally see the exact text on the screen while it
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, and those were all the Riddler thugs or the Riddler militia
the
at the
army. Yeah,
end. Yeah. And so like that's a great twist is that we capture the Riddler in it's sort of not a big finish to capturing him. He sort of gets spotted by somebody who sees him coming out of the window, and he goes sits into a diner. So that's a little bit of not a letdown, but you kind of wish there was a little bit more to capturing him because it wasn't his plan to get captured. If he had maybe it shouldn't have been.
Well, I feel like it was his plan. I think that he knew that the case was closing in. Like Batman was figuring this shit out, and it was starting to get a little hot. But I think he also knew who was in Arkham Asylum. I think that's why we got that scene between him and unsaid person who's making clown references. I
Yeah,
well,
think he
actually,
knew who was in there.
I thought he got captured on purpose because he wanted an audience with the Batman. And that's what happened in that one final sequence that we see between Riddler and the Batman, where Batman's banging or punching the glass scene. What did you do? What did you do? And the Riddler's just laughing at him like, you're
Well,
not as smart as I thought you
he
were.
thought they were going to be partners, right? So he may have been setting
Yeah,
that up like, "Hey, we did this together." Because the Riddler in his mind at this time, at least the way he's portraying it, is we're in this together.
yeah. He
yeah.
thought they were
Yeah.
equals. Yeah,
I could see it going either way, but yeah, probably leaning towards what you guys are saying. But his goal wasn't done. He hadn't killed
oh, yeah.
Bruce, and that was the last piece of the puzzle before taking the rest of Gotham out. But maybe this was just how he wanted to go that way. What else didn't really work for you, gentlemen? Matt, anything else?
The part where the Riddler's sitting at the cafe and instead of the cops busting in, it's Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator, and he's like, "Mister, I'm just kidding.
I'm Chris
Have a
Hansen.
seat." No. What was the question again?
What didn't work well for you?
What didn't work well for me? The runtime for sure. I thought it
Yeah.
was a little delayed. I didn't like that because I'm just such an Alfred guy. I didn't like that Bruce was
Yes.
mean to him. Um,
I was going to say something else.
no, I think that I don't know. There's a lot that didn't work for me only in like technical aspects of runtime and particular story arcs that we didn't necessarily have to start yet. If you were just going to tease us like that, like with the Joker, I mean, the movie could have just ended basically in a particular scene. Like we didn't have to dive into certain of these things. But for the most part, for me, the movie worked completely.
Yeah. I was gonna say some. I thought you were gonna say that Andy Serkis was underutilized as Alfred. He's a
Yeah.
fantastic actor, and he had been put into this movie, and you just thought like this is a match made in heaven, and we didn't get a lot of him
Mm.
in this film, and it's probably by design because we spent so much time with Bruce and Selena. But I could have used more Andy Serkis as
I could have
Alfred
too.
Pennyworth.
100%. But he was, at this point of angsty adult's life, they kind of pushed their parents away, and that's what Alfred was to him.
Yeah.
So it made
This
sense
is
for the
the
story. Um,
yeah.
but
This is
he
the
took a
Maybe
part
lot
of
of bullet
Bruce's
shots
life.
too. That didn't work for me. He took a
Yeah,
lot of bullet shots.
this is the
who
part of
Batman?
Bruce's life where he's being a shithead to Alfred. You know, he
Mhm.
doesn't understand, his connection with them. He's still trying to figure things out about himself. But at the end of the film, he understands where he and Alfred stand, and I think he has a deeper appreciation for him. But yeah, this is where he's being that you're transitioning from middle school to high school, and in your middle school 8 years, that's when you become a little shithead. And then
Mhm.
as you go back into high school, you start becoming a younger adult and maybe start being a little bit more level-headed as you get older. But right now, early on, Bruce is all like full of angst, and he doesn't
Yeah,
appreciate
he's
Alfred
he's
until he almost
pissy.
loses
Yeah,
him. Yeah,
he's
until he
pissy.
almost loses the guy. But Alfred had a lot of worth uh, for Bruce because he was helping him with the ciphers, and Alfred's
Mhm.
more than just being the butler. He's basically Bruce Wayne's confidant. That's his rock right there for all intents
It's his
and
real
purposes.
sidekick.
Yeah, it is. So it's I think it's a slow build up, Ted, to what they're going to wind up doing. Maybe if they have a sequel to the film, which I'm sure they are. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm sure you'll see more screen time for Alfred. But I agree. I thought Andy Serkis did a great job. He's a great actor. And you kind of forget what he did too with um what is it with a Black Panther, and then that character that he portrayed, and now he can switch from going crazy like that to being in this kind of fatherly role with Bruce Wayne here with Robert Pattinson. So that shows you his range. The guy the guy can do it all, and he's also can don the green suit and the little infrared balls that they put on their head to still be one of the best actors when it comes to animation and stuff for characters on screen. Like he even did the motion capture stuff for the Planet of the Apes movies and numerous other
Yeah.
films. He's one of
Yeah,
the
that's
best,
right.
He's showing his full range here.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Let's see here. What else either really worked well for you or didn't work so well for you before we get to our Geekcast rating? Other than what we've already talked about, I'm gonna say the Batmobile. When I saw it on the trailer, it really took me a while to kind of um really really like the new style of it. I think it just took more details and more photos of it and then seeing it in action in the trailer and then seeing it in the movie and how they kind of did that reveal when we first saw it. That worked really well for me. And I even want to say like they did the reveal where he was sort of like revving up the engine like it was a kettle about to pop, and then he just kind of did this real quick like lunge forward, but he stopped, and I'm like, no, you should have just floored it, and that would have been even better. Just seeing it floor towards the penguin, but he should have got a head start before that would have happened. So I just wish it just would have been a build up and then just go and then do that chase scene. I also didn't really want them to do is when he was walking up to Penguin. All that was really cool, great. That was an iconic shot. Walking up with the fire behind Batman. Hopefully nobody died on that highway. But Batman turning sideways to look in that door was a little awkward. Penguin upside down with the terror in his face, perfect. Batman looking sideways, like down at a weird angle, like no, what could have done without that? Just show us Penguin's face looking scared. That would have been fine. Um, so nothing major, just tiny little things like that. Runtime though, you guys, you've already said it. You definitely feel the 3 hours. Uh, so if this could have been cut down, but I don't even know what you cut down because everything was so fleshed out. Everything was so like dramatic and built up, and I kind of loved that tonal part of it. Doing it that way. Niner in the comments says the motorcycle was lame too. We don't get a whole lot of shots of the motorcycle. We see him riding it from time to time, and he must have two, possibly because one had sort of a Batman um, windshield on it, if you will, front to it, and I think one of them didn't. So
What
that
type
was
of bikes were
interesting.
they? To me, they look like Ducatis.
Really.
Yeah, they looked and sounded like Ducatis. So
Niner also says they should have had the Riddler do TikToks, and yeah, that'd have been neat. That'd have been
that would have
cool.
been dope.
I'd have
That
been
I
would
down
have
for
been.
that.
I like the because Bruce Wayne has like again I said this in our preview video for the final trailer. Um, Bruce Wayne is a motorhead. He loves ingenuity. He loves cars and he loves motorcycles. And there's a scene that I always remember from Batman Forever when he's trying to recruit Dick Grayson to come live at the manor, and they're sitting around. There's just a bunch of cars and a bunch of motorcycles that they have, and kind of working on them and that sort of thing. And I thought this made a lot of sense. The other Batman movies, we saw the Batmobile in '89. We saw a revised one. We just saw that there was a Batmobile in Forever. We just saw that there was a new Batmobile in Batman Returns. Um, and then even in the Nolan films, it's just because he was a rich guy whose parents owned a research and development company for the military. And yeah, sure, you can have that. Like Bruce Wayne has never built his Batmobile. He built his Batmobile in this movie. This is just year two. he's building it. I can tell you this stupid little proton pack I have back here is taking me about a damn year. By year two, if he's already here with a Camaro that was probably in the collection, makes sense for Bruce Wayne to have. It's
There
not
you go.
throwing up any red flags. It makes total sense to me. The Batmobile and the motorcycles together.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, Joe, any final what you liked or what you didn't like before we get to our ratings?
I like the the actors in this film. I think they did a really good job. I
Yep.
like the storyline. However, I just felt that the runtime was a bit much, and there was three different times where they could have had a stopping point in the film, but they decided to continue on, push on, and push on. It added more to the story, but overall, when you go back and you look at it, I mean, those were your three different stopping points. That right there, I think, could have at least shaved off a half hour. So it would have been 2.5 hours maybe. But adding those other additional scenes, you could have added that to an extended scene or made it, even like a director's cut, and it would have made it seem like an entirely different film. Yes, but you could have at least cut out 30 minutes if you would have at least come to one of those stopping points. Maybe even 15 minutes off the movie could have been cut off if you would have gone to the second stopping point. But it's a bit much, and at the end of the day, too. I mean, based on what I've seen from the storyline, what I liked about it, how I thought it did a great job of being inclusive as far as including these villains. You had three different villains in the film, and I think they did a really good job of trying to cram them into this film, and without making it seem like they were forcing the issue. The story was very organic. But the thing is like 940, 9 or 49 kind of said, you kind of saw what was going to happen at the end of the big twist in the whole thing. You kind of saw that coming, so it wasn't really a
Which
shock
one?
with the
There's a
mob
few
boss,
twists in here.
and
Him
the
dying?
no, not him dying, but the big reveal of, oh, he's the one that's in charge of the whole city. He's got the whole city in his pocket. I You kind of already kind of figured that out already.
It was it
That's
was a
it.
good. It was they hit it well because I was very into the story about they had already had a huge drug bust with this guy before, you know? So it's like, what would be the reasons for him being in on it? And they kind of go through those reasons why he set himself to lose all this money or these drugs to make everybody happy, to have people who were involved with the case actually get promoted to positions of power, and he actually owned them. So a fantastic plot, if you ask me, when they revealed the reasons behind Falcone actually being involved with these cases.
But you
um
kind of saw that the writing was on the wall already, just based on the way the guy was handling himself in the club. He wasn't afraid for nothing. He walked around like he owned the place, and then
Yeah,
the other
Falcone.
part,
he came off as a connected guy.
yeah, he was a connected guy. Like to me, it felt like when was watching the film without even knowing, it kind of felt like he was the kind of the guy running things behind the scenes, because everybody was so afraid of him inside the club. They respected him out of fear, and then you see these high level officials from the city that are just in here with no worries, that this is a safe haven for them. Why? Because the guy that they work for is running the whole thing. Daddy's here at work, we're good. So it wasn't, to me, it wasn't like a big reveal. It's kind of like I kind of saw this coming. And another thing that really kind of said, hey, this is the dude in charge. When Bruce Wayne tried to approach him at the funeral, right away you had these other guys, hey, like they're trying to protect him, like this guy was some type of piece of gold or something. He was a high level target. He had people protecting him. He walked around like he owned the place. So I mean, that's not done haphazardly. It was done on purpose.
We understand that he's like the mob boss, but to say that he's the rat and he was willing to sacrifice the largest drug bust, which was all of his product, I'm sure, in Gotham's history. And what would he gain from that? Well, we find out what he gains from that. He put all the people in positions of power so that he could actually run Gotham, because he wasn't running it before. He had to do this one big scheme that actually lifted him to this level of power. That was
It,
really cool.
it's going to be history repeating itself, because when Bruce Wayne's father died, there was a play for the city. Falcone played for the city.
Yeah.
He won. Now we see that since he's died, the mob boss dies, there's going to be another power play for the city, and yet another Wayne's going to be involved in this next power play. There's going to be a new king that's going to be rising to take that crown and rule Gotham. And even Batman, Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne's character said he knew that was going to happen, because even Selena's like, you don't want to be around for that, and she goes, and he's like, well, yeah, I know. He knows that there's going to be a play for the city. It's just history repeating itself. So to me, it wasn't really a big reveal. I kind of
Yeah,
knew already, based on what I had already seen. So I was like, okay, well, they just confirmed my assumptions.
for sure. To
Sure.
address what 9 or 49 was just saying, because he was saying, for reveal movies, you need at least 5 suspects. Who else would have been the rat? It was him or the penguin only. But I feel like for that part of it, that wasn't like super obvious. I think at parts of the film, it was Batman could be the rat because it was kind of setting up a rat with wings. At some points, I think Bruce was thinking that his dad could be the rat. I think that Falcone was there, and then the Penguin for sure. So that's like four, right? Like we had um, suspects in the movie, right?
Yeah, and then they kept interrogating like other cops and stuff
Hmm.
to kind of get more information out. One of them finally talked
Yeah.
at towards the end there, but
Yeah, finally, that
yeah.
scene though was it? Remember that scene where Batman's in here and he's just like doing his detective thing, and he's being very broody, and it's very dark in there, and a cop walks in with a flashlight, and Robert
Martinez.
Pattinson has no lines in this scene. and just looks back at him. Well, you can see the wide eyes of the cows, and then it takes a few seconds, and it's nerve wracking. And the officer's like, "Well, okay, you know." And then Batman goes back to doing what he's doing, and he picks something up, and the officer's like, "You can't do that." And Batman just looks at him again, just a little bit more aggressively this time. It says 0 words the whole scene. I thought that was like one of my favorite Batman Pattinson scenes, and it had no words in it. He was just being intimidating.
There you go. There you go. This is gonna be the part of the show when we give you our Geekcast rating. The way it works is it's a 1 to 5 scale. One being Batman and Robin, and five being the greatest Batman movie you've ever seen. Take your pick. Is it The Dark Knight? Is it the Batman '89 film? Maybe you're an Adam West fan, but five being the absolute best comic movie or Bat movie you've ever seen before. And we're gonna start with you, Joe. What is your Geekcast rating?
Even with the little issues that I did have with this film, just basing it on a film, not where it ranks overall as far as
Yeah,
being
don't do
one
that.
of the Batman films, no. Just being a nice film to watch from start to finish, I give it a 5. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well done. I like the score. I like the sound effects in this
You had
movie.
the most to complain about.
I know, but I'm just telling you, based on the little complaints that I had were minuscule in the grand scheme of the overall presentation of the film itself.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
liked everything. I thought it was well done as far as, the choreography of the fight scenes. I like the cinematography, the lighting, the textures, the way that the camera movement really brought you into the action, and the way that the overall aesthetic was as far as making you part of this organic world. It was really dark and gritty. The use of lighting, the use of red, the darks, the grays, even like they used amber lighting a lot, and it was really cool. Even that one scene in particular, I thought was really well done. I was like, man, what were the ISO settings on that camera when they were having that one scene where Batman was shooting? They were shooting at Batman, and that was the lighting for the scene. It was the gunfire from the gun, and it was kind of like a strobe light effect. I thought that was really masterfully done there. I was like, good use of ISO settings on the cameras, the lenses that they used, the angles to really bring you into that action, and to make you feel that scene. It was really good. So even this, the storyline itself, I thought with its little issues, it was really well done. I give it a 5. I thought it was a really good movie. Really good movie. I'd have to say it's probably gonna be in the running for probably best movie of the year. Not of all time,
Oof.
but one of the best movies of the year.
It has stiff competition. Just the
Yeah, bro.
amount of hype around Doctor Strange 2, I think, is
We
enough
haven't
to
seen it
sort
yet.
of.
We haven't seen that one yet.
We haven't, but Marvel's like they're running on all cylinders, man. I wouldn't bet
I don't
against them at
trust
all right
Marvel,
now.
though. I'm gonna be dead honest with you. I saw what they've already done before, and I'm not trusting Marvel anymore, man. They've
What are you
already let me
talking
down.
about?
They've let me down already, Teddy. I'm telling you, the times are a changing, bro. They are
They
a
just
changing.
had $1 billion in a weekend movie that just came out. What do you mean?
I'm not trusting Marvel. The quality of the product is what I'm not trusting with them. Sometimes overhype stuff and underdeliver. And
Was No Way Home overhyped?
No Way Home, it's a collaboration between Marvel and Sony. It's not a full-on Marvel product. No Way Home was one of the better Spidey films, no doubt.
Sure.
But when you look at some of the other films that have been done, in the MCU, there's some duds there. And even like some of the series that have come out, they overhype and they underdeliver. And I think, unfortunately, for the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, they're showing you all these things, and as we well know what happens, some of those things don't make it into the film. They do these things all the time with the trailer, and they overhype stuff, and at the end of the day, the product doesn't fit with what they were trying to sell you. Unlike the Batman, basically what they were showing you in the trailer is what you got to see, and I commend them for that.
I think probably showed us a little too much in the trailer, but there were some things I wish I would have seen for the first time in this movie. Matt, you're next, sir. What is your Geekcast rating for the Batman?
I go 4.3. It was good. It was really, really good. I don't go up to 5 because once you give a 5, You can't go anywhere from there. So I would go 4.3. It was really good. I love this, and again, to like the best movie of the year category, sort of like that. Talking about that conversation, to piggyback on that a little bit, I think the Batman is going to be nominated for different categories than any Marvel movie is going to ever be nominated for.
Sure.
This particular Batman movie is going to be nominated for different categories. I think this could clean up several categories that may not be best movie of the year. But I think it's going to clean up in some awards. I also like, as far as the Marvel thing goes, and trying to go up against Doctor Strange too. Like Marvel is McDonald's, bro. Like who sells more hamburgers than anyone in the world, Ted? Who sells more hamburgers than anyone in the world? Name the
It's
company.
quantity, Ted.
Sounds
Quantity,
like
not
sounds like
quality.
McDonald's.
It
Yeah.
sounds like McDonald's, okay? McDonald's sells more hamburgers than anyone in the world. It's not even close, probably. Um, but would they win a best burger competition?
No.
Hell no.
Hell no. Okay, so fuck sales. Marvel fans, that's the only thing they can hang their hat on right now.
They're
It's
used
it's
to eating
it's
that
double
stale bread.
cheeseburgers. It's Happy Meals. It's lame. This movie wasn't lame. This movie was cool. This movie was different. This movie was your local burger spot that has a happy hour special. That's the best burger you can get. What this is. Marvel Doctor Strange 2 is going to be a double quarter pounder of fries, and that's fine too. But it's
Man,
not. It's not. It's just that's the only way I can describe Marvel at this point.
I like
It's McDonald's.
I like Niner 49. He's funny, man. He reminds me of Robert Kalunga a little bit.
Yeah,
He says
he's
DC is
trolling.
in and out. DC is in and out. Marvel is Burger King.
Yeah,
DC is
um,
in and out. Marvel is Burger King, and
yeah,
then he also
but
says Marvel is Jack in the Crack.
4.3 for me.
Don't
I thought it
tell
was
don't
awesome.
don't tell my wife that she loves Jack in the Box.
Um,
Hey,
I, I
the Jack in the Box tacos are bomb, dude. Those are
That's
fire.
that's what she does. Yeah,
can we leave
don't get
one
her started.
question for everyone to just sit on and think about when they sleep tonight? Is
What's that?
Batman in this movie an incel? Is he is he just like not hooking up? Is he? I mean, he has several chances here as a broody young character, a young guy, to hook up with Selena Kyle. I think that maybe sets up a lot of tension with them in later movies too. Once they break up and realize it's not going to work, he should have hooked. They should have hooked up.
You're not wrong there, man. You're not wrong. And I will actually kind of fit right in between you gentlemen when it comes to this rating, and it's something that I've actually kind of been evolving because I have seen this twice and I've had some time to kind of ponder over it and think about it. But my Geekcast rating actually comes in at a 4.5. I love the score. I love the tone of this movie. Even right from the opening sequence, it kind of felt like The Crow to me. It has a very unique style. The narration is something new that we've
What
never
a
really had
reference! Pull
in
out the
a in a
crow.
in a Batman film. We've never had Bruce Wayne sort of giving us his inner monologue throughout a film, and that was to drive home that noir feel to it, and it's very refreshing in that regard. I know that the better Batman or the best Batman film that Matt Reeves is going to make is has yet to be seen. He wanted to show us sort of a Batman, much like Spider-Man in Homecoming, who didn't have all the answers. He wasn't really good at anything yet. He was sort of just going with the flow, doing the best he could, but he's not effective at this. He's not efficient. He will become more proficient in crime fighting along the way. And so the definitive Batman, the best Batman that Matt Reeves is going to put on screen is coming soon. But this one wasn't it. And I'm looking forward a lot to Matt Reeves showing us what he thinks is peak Batman or Batman in his peak form. And that's what's really exciting is wondering what is that going to look like. That brings our overall Geekcast rating to a 4.6, not too shabby, as I always say. And if you want to let us know what your Geekcast rating is, 1 to 5 scale. Please drop it in the comments. Niners probably what, around a 3? What would you say, my man? Let us
4.3 is
know.
what you said. Okay. And then I had a 5.0. And let's see what our average is.
Our average is 4.6.
0.63. There you go.
Yeah. Other things to just really quickly talk about. Domestic opening for the Batman, 134 million. That puts it at the fourth largest DC domestic opening ever, behind the Dark Knight Rises, the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight Rises, and then sitting at the top, Batman v Superman, which I've had a lot of questions over. How do you have the biggest DC movie opening ever, and yet it was talked about as an
Performing.
underperforming movie because we spent so much time comparing it to Marvel films. No Way Home opened what feels like a few weeks ago, but it was back in December, and that opened to over 200 million domestically. I think it was 260, and then 600 million worldwide. $600 million in a weekend, and I think that's just the power that Marvel has. I've come to the realization, as a diehard DC fan, there's just way more Marvel fans today than there are DC fans. And that's not a criticism of DC. That's not a knock on DC. I think it can absolutely be true that there's just more fans for one property than the other. There's more heroes out there in Marvel films than there are DC, and so they have more opportunities right now to sort of take advantage of that and really run with some ideas that make a whole lot of sense. And I don't want to compare the two. I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm trying to say that there should be no comparison going forward. DC can be successful without comparing their movies to Marvel, and I think had we been doing that from the start, um, DC films would look way different today than what they are. But this movie is going to be talked about as a major win for DC. It's going to be talked about as a major achievement, and it should, because it is. Um, but it's just peculiar how, like, the narrative can be swayed one way or the other. Last thing I want to talk to you gentlemen about is, if you have a choice on what villains you want to see in the sequel, give me two villains you want to see Batman go up against in Matt Reeves' Batman sequel. Matt, let's start with you, man.
Hugo Strange and Freeze.
Nice. Hugo and Dr. Freeze. That'd be awesome, man. Any casting choices you've thought about since you've seen
No,
this?
no, definitely not. I don't. I'm not a really good caster because I always like think about the old. I always like it when I'm a little bit surprised, like Zoe Kravitz being cast as Catwoman. Wow, that's interesting. Pattinson. Whoa, he's going to be Batman. What? What? Out of nowhere from the clouds, and then yeah. So I would prefer to be surprised, but I would like those character stories.
There you go. There you go. Joe, what about you, man? Have you thought about a couple of villains you'd want to see in the sequel?
Yeah, I mean, there's talk here that they might be, doing something with Hush. I don't know if that's gonna really happen,
What
or
do
not.
you want? I don't want you to
What do
predict. I
I
want you to
want?
tell me,
I'm
what do you
thinking
want?
what I would like is I'd like to see the Scarecrow, of course, and I'd like to see Joker, you
Okay.
know? I think that maybe the Scarecrow is already there at Arkham. We just didn't see him. We kind of saw a little bit of the Joker and and the Riddler interacting, but I'd like to see the Scarecrow, and I would like to see what they do with this version of the Scarecrow based on what we've seen in the other versions. The latest being the Batman Begins version of the Scarecrow. Want to see a true to life, version of the Scarecrow in this universe. So to me, that would be something I'd like to see. And of course, the Joker. And I like the way that even though we only saw kind of a silhouette and we saw some faint details, I did like what they were doing with this version of the Joker. So I'd like to see what happens.
There you go. There you go. Dr. Crane might be working at Arkham at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe he's
Exactly.
not a villain just yet, but maybe he's a doctor
Yeah.
over at the hospital, and we could see his origins or see him get started as a criminal in the next one.
We could also see maybe
Um,
the makings of one Harley Quinn as well.
yeah, there's been talks about that as well. I'm not really too sure how I feel about that because we had such a great one, a current Harley right now. I don't know if I want to see another rendition of it so soon. But if I had to choose, and I would like to see Doctor Freeze done. That way we could forget about Arnold as him. I want that erased from my memory.
He's the only one who doesn't have vengeance yet. Everyone else has been replayed by somebody a little bit better, almost. So it's like he's the last one standing in that regard.
But you gotta love Arnold and what his one-liners. Freeze.
Hmm. And playing
Everybody freeze.
the claymation Christmas movie in the ice cave. That was great. Anyways, Ted, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, no. You're good, man. That would be one. Doctor Freeze would be awesome. I I've always wanted to see somebody really do a successful Clock King, and you'd have to find like the right actor to do a Clock King story, and the story would have to be impeccable because a villain who's superpower is almost like an incredible sense of time, but is using a lot of terrorist tactics with that to keep evading law enforcement or evading Batman. I think could be really fun. But again, you would need an incredible actor. Like I don't really want to guess right now, but just incredible actor to kind of play that role. Honestly, the top of my list, I just don't think that I just don't know if there's a spot for him in this universe yet. It's Clayface, and I talked about this with Matt a little bit before, but I would cast Tom Hanks as as a Matt Hagen, who in the comic story or the animated series was a washed up actor using a face cream that would had a could change his molecular structure and keep him looking young and could still be having a career with it. I would love to see Tom Hanks play Matt Hagen and eventually become Clayface. I would love to see Clayface on a big screen because he's such a formidable villain for Batman. But I'm not sure if there's a spot yet for him in this universe of Matt Reeves is building. But
It
that
depends
remains
on
to be
how like
seen.
supernatural he wants to get. Because once you get to Clayface, there's a lot of different characters you could introduce. It just depends on how far outside of reality he wants to go. But you pitched that idea at the Comic Con, and I was like, I was like, damn, that's a really good idea, especially because of the vanity required and applying the cream and sort of being addicted to it and obsessed with his career, and that's what turns him into the monster. It's a good idea.
I
There you
like the
go.
Man Bat as well. If they're gonna bring in Clayface, bring in Man Bat.
Yeah.
Ooh.
What was the alligator, the crocodile? There's one of those too, right?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Croc. It was like Croc. I mean, it might even
Croc,
just be
It's
that.
just
Huh?
I think it's just
Killer
Croc.
Croc.
Yeah,
Killer
Yeah,
Croc,
Killer Croc.
Killer Croc. Yeah. I mean,
which
there's
yeah, we've seen in we've seen in Suicide Squad, and I want to say we've seen him in another in a TV series, but I can't remember which one right now off the top of my head. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I
yeah,
wouldn't mind that.
that almost gets you too close to the like once you get to those types of villains, it really starts to like I start to get a little bit washed with some of the Spider-Man movies. You know what I mean? Or like the Spider-Man comics because they had like kind of like similar like supernatural characters like and so I always get kind of mixed up there on those.
Yeah, Matt Reeves is trying to create a universe that's still very grounded, but still feels very much like a graphic novel. And so I appreciate the effort. He's trying to mix in a little bit of both fantasy and reality in this universe. And so I just want to see how far he's willing to take it. Um, Other than that, all I wanted to point out was one other real quick scene that kind of stuck out to me, and it just nostalgia feeling. I grew up watching the animated series in the early '90s, and the way the animation style of Batman moving with his cape was very kind of very unique, and there's one moment in the Batman towards the end when he's reaching and he jumps after this cable that is it's an open cable, and then there's a current running through it. And as he reaches and grabs it, he sort of spins around the cable, and his cape is kind of flowing with him. Very, very, very reminiscent of seeing Batman from the animated series just jumping on anything and spinning around and twisting and twirling that cape. And it just looked right off the dang TV screen when he did that. And I'm just like, wow, that's something I thought I'd always wanted to see, but I never thought I would. Just a live action film where Batman was moving like he did in the animated series. He's so much more acrobatic in the animated series. He's so much more acrobatic in the comics and from anything we've really seen in live action. So I hope we sort of get close to something like that one day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've pretty much covered everything. We've talked about our rating. We talked about the future, what it holds, and all I can say is we all really enjoyed it. We hope you did as well. If you're watching this, be sure to let us know again what your thoughts were about the movie. Nine, appreciate your comments today, sir. I know Joseph was on earlier, and he still hasn't seen it yet, so I'm glad he didn't get spoiled, Joe. Hope you see it soon, buddy. And if you're watching this video at a later time, please let us know what you thought about it. I actually have one more item to call out. Mr. Brian Ortiz, he also had a comment on social media about the movie. He calls it a spaghetti western crime noir mixed with artistic imagery and a splash of David Fincher. Um, Creates a unique, moody Gotham and a wonderful character driven Batman for a new era of films. And that is the one and only Brian Ortiz covering the Batman as well as he and anybody possibly can. That'll do it for this episode of the Countdown to the Geekcast. Again, let us know what you thought about the Batman. You can send us a message on Facebook by clicking that send message button, or you can always email us on the contact page of our website at www.countdowntothegeekcast.com. For the Geekcast, my name is Steady. With me on this episode is the man behind the magic. You know him as Joe Garcia.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and let us know what you thought of the movie. Go ahead and drop us a comment, or chime in with Ted if you know him. Give him slide into his DMs. Let him know what you think about his portrayal, or not his portrayal, but his rating on the Batman, and why he didn't give it a 5. So make sure
Really,
you give him some
really.
flack for that. I'm just
Shots
giving him
fired,
a
shots
hard
fired.
time. But also, a shout out to you, Maddie, for joining us. It was a lot of fun talking, the Batman with you. And, we also want to thank all the fans for listening and for watching this episode. This is why we do this, and we stay up late. We do this for you guys. So thank you so much for supporting the Countdown City Geekcast.
Absolutely. And last but definitely not least, he's the one and only Matty B. Appreciate it, Matt.
We lost his audio.
Oh no, we just lost your audio, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
There
muted
you go.
myself because I thought I might be breathing heavy. It was just so sentimental, the closing here. But it was awesome. Thanks you guys for having me on. I love the movie, and definitely like and subscribe to the stuff. Hop in here. If you hated anything that I said here, come and tell me about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get the chat thread going. Let's keep it moving. Invite your friends. And thanks to Joe and Steady for having me on. I appreciate you guys.
And let the folks know out there where they can find Matty B TV.
Matty B TV on Instagram, Matty B TV on YouTube, or my Instagram is _stay_posy baby. Let's go. But just the posy, not the baby. So just stay posy.
And for anybody out there who might be interested in one day wanting to build their own proton pack, where might they find your Facebook group, sir?
Yeah, that'll be Frank and Gang on Facebook. And if you want to build a proton pack, I'll show you how.
There you go. Who wouldn't want to?
Yeah.
Joe, you're gonna get yours next, right, man?
Well, I was thinking of building me one just with my 2 3D printers.
Ooh.
And
And
Matt can help you with that.
I got
Time.
you. Well, we could hook you up.
Gonna
we
hook
got
you
all
up,
the
Joe.
files for free, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I got 2, Volkslab Aries 3D printers right here,
Oh, heck
sitting on
yeah.
the other side. I call them the twins, so
All right,
they,
well, send me your address. I'll be there in
yeah.
15.
Okay, cool, man. Come on in. I have it in my studio.
All right, guys.